Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Tantalus Systems channel, empowering the electrified future with smart grid solutions for utilities. Joining us, as always, we have the Chief Executive Officer, Peter Londo. Welcome back.
Kyle, how are you today?
Living the dream as always. Yourself?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having us.
Always a pleasure. We got lots to go over. You were recently in Dallas, Texas for that trade show, DistribuTECH, where we kind of got some inside view. I want to discuss that a little bit. We're going to talk about those earnings, get into some deep diving. We're going to talk a little bit about the stock as well. There's lots to cover in this video. So let's just start with what you guys saw on the ground floor, talking to all these utilities with your tech.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So we had the privilege of participating in the largest industry trade show for the utility market last week in Dallas. It's called DistribuTECH. It's kind of like the Consumer Electronics Show, CES, that happens in Las Vegas every year, but it's sort of CES for electric utilities. And it was the first time they've hosted it in person in the last 2 years. I think they had roughly 12,000 people attend from mostly the United States, but all over the world. And I'd say really terrific traffic for us in our booth. We had about 20 employees attend. A number of utilities coming through to learn more about our data analytics that we launched last year and the new TrueSense Fiber Gateway that's now in prototype and hopefully starting field trials this summer. To really learn more about that. We had a number of large investor-owned utilities come in to learn more about Congruitive, the company that we recently acquired, in helping integrate distributed energy resources. And I'd say overarching themes that we saw and that I picked up on from the conference itself was the focus for utilities to truly leverage the data that systems like ours, Tantalus, delivers to them, and how that data can lead to just a much more efficient and productive decision-making process internally. Second, and what dovetails to that access to data and what to do with that data is the scramble and urgency that utilities are now expressing to prepare for electric vehicle charging infrastructure, what that means to the resiliency of transformers that are in the ground today, and how critical that is relative to supply chain constraints that are making transformers not readily available for utilities. So if those devices fail, they've got serious problems. So the theme was, in anticipation of EVs, what impact does that have on infrastructure? How can data from systems like ours help utilities prepare for that? So great overarching messages and great activity at the trade show. So real pleased with it.
I really appreciate those insights. I feel like this is a very transitional moment for the utility sector, and it's incredible to see how Tantalus Systems is kind of forefronting this change and kind of diving farther down into this. I know we briefly touched on your financials there, but I wouldn't mind reiterating and pulling out some points that you mentioned. So, I mean, your revenue went from 8 million to 9.29 million for Q1 over last year. Gross margins are up 48%. And you kind of mentioned a few things like software and services increased 36%. You said supply chains are starting to stabilize. So I feel like you kind of pointing out a lot of the concerns here that many investors in the retail audiences have on their minds. So would you mind first and foremost zooming in on that software and services side of the business and maybe just talk briefly on how these supply chains are kind of working themselves out?
Yeah, so we really run this business as if it's a software company. We still generate a lot of revenue from hardware, but it's the devices that go into the field. Show and tell. It's this device, which is effectively the guts of your iPhone. That's what we sell to utilities. We generate revenue from it, but it's that device that goes into the field that is deployed for over a decade. It creates an incredibly sticky relationship, and it's the data and the analysis of data on that device that leads us to an increasing revenue contribution from our enterprise software applications and our AI-enabled data analytics. And so as we continue to expand as a business, our goal is convince utilities to buy the devices, the hardware, get that deployed into the field because it entrenches us at that utility for over a decade, and then start mining the data. And from that data, continuing to build software and services. In terms of the growth for our software and services capabilities, we would have right around 30% of the revenue profile came from software and services in Q1. It's a historic high for us in terms of revenue contribution from software and services. We continue to see strong compounded annual growth year over year of the revenue that we generate from the software and services component of our solution. And I think that trend continues, particularly as we get more devices deployed and from there more data. That contribution was bolstered from the acquisition we announced on January 31st of this year of a company called Congruitive, small software company that continues to enhance what we do. And where I think investors will really see that in terms of our quarterly earnings and annual results is in the increasing scale of the recurring revenue that we're generating every year, which is truly from software maintenance, and our analytics capabilities. We highlighted in our earnings report that our annualized recurring revenue at the end of Q1 stands just under $9 million, about 8.7, 8.8 million US dollars. And when we look back 5-6 years, Tantalus had about $3 to $3.5 million of annual recurring revenue. So we've almost tripled that over the course of the last 5-6 years. And I think that is the basis of what's driving the improved gross margins and the scale of the business.
Yeah, that's incredible insight. I really appreciate that. And we're kind of moving from a broad view market perspective, like the speculative bubble that kind of bursted, dragging a lot of small caps and just a lot of speculative based investments down with it. And now we're kind of, I feel like, moving into this next phase where these companies that have the capability to continue to grow and thrive, even though getting dragged down, are starting to see a little bit of a sunshine here to some extent. Hopefully it continues. But from the insider perspective, you guys had some buying going on there that has also been helping drive the stock up. Do you want to offer a little insight there on what kind of conviction you guys have behind Tantalus?
Yeah, absolutely. So to your first point, Kyle, we are, I think we absolutely have been bundled in the downward pressure in the tech sector in general across the Toronto Stock Exchange and the Venture Exchange, which includes a number of companies that are still trying to commercialize their capabilities and prove that they're building something that will get adopted. We're the inverse of that. We've got scale, we've got real revenue, and we've got real visibility in the form of backlog, in the form of annual recurring revenue that sits on top of that backlog. And then the predictability of how our utilities are deploying our solution year after year and issuing us purchase orders in conjunction with those deployment schedules. So we've got a lot of substance to the business, and I think we've been unfairly impacted by the sell-off. To that end, we are, from our perspective, we have insiders that are buying the stock at this point. We view that the share price is grossly undervalued relative to where the business should be. And so from our perspective, individually, we're very bullish on the organization and think current share price creates a really compelling opportunity from an investor perspective to drive value moving forward. So I think we'll continue to see that insider buying and at this level for sure, and believe the stock has a lot of room to move as the fundamentals of our business really, I think, get picked up by investors and as a result, fairly value the company in the future.
I appreciate that. And just to finish up, I want to offer a quick quote from one of your clients who mentioned that solid AMI solutions. We have been a customer for 15 years. Pete and his team are second to none with customer support and system design. Tantalus is the definition of reliability and performance of mesh systems. So it's kind of nice hearing it from longstanding clients. Maybe offer a little bit more insight to anybody watching this. But on that note, I'll pass the question off to the viewers here. We'd love to know what you guys think about all of this in that comment section below. Definitely consider subscribing, because as this news continues to come down the wire, we'll always update you here. But stay cool, stay awesome, and as always, I look forward to catching you in the next one.